Okay, so we're going to get real because I think, being here with health, wellness, things that we say we want, we don't necessarily do for ourselves. And what always pisses me off because, women get asked this question all the time, but you never heard it. You never hear men get asked the question, which is, how do you do it all, right? How do you do it all? And then we also hear about work-life balance. There's no such thing as balance. You got one life. Your career, your family, your community, your friends, and what's the last one? Yourself. What do we neglect? Ourselves. We're not going to do that anymore. And we were just Ty and I were having a conversation earlier about being afraid. You know what the best thing is? Be afraid and still do it. And that's called bravery, right? And we're all brave. And we all control who we are, how we feel, and what we do. And if you don't know that you can control that, listen and learn right here, right now. And so I have two bold, badass women sitting up here. And I want to say leaders, role models, inspiring individuals, athletes. And we know that over 94% of senior leaders in business have played on a team sport. Think about that. That is very true. So we're going to talk about some lessons that we've learned from there too. I'm going to go off script, so I'm just giving you a minute to know that. So whatever these questions say, we're probably not going to get to them. So I said you're going to introduce yourselves. Tell me who you are, what you do, and then tell me something, tell all of us something we might not know about you on your LinkedIn profile. So we're off script, so I'm going to give you a 10-second pause so you can think of it since there you have it. Let's go.
Well, hey, y'all. My name is AJ Andrews, and I'm a professional softball player, and I'm also a TV host with Major League Baseball and Reach TV. And so outside of all of those things, I think with LinkedIn, I'm also known as the Beyonce of softball.
Woo, woo! That's really good. That's better than Chief Troublemaker.
And I was given, I actually didn't give that name to myself. I was on a radio show, and they announced me, that was what they announced me as, the Beyonce of softball, because I'm known for making amazing diving catches, actually the first woman to win a Rawlings Gold Glove. And so if you're familiar, if you're familiar with baseball, it's a big deal for the first time for a woman to be able to receive it. And so being the Beyonce of softball, I want to continue, and my goal, hopefully also that's not also on my LinkedIn, but is to continue to make women in softball feel like they can achieve the most and do what was considered impossible before I had done it, winning a Gold Glove, but doing all the other things that are right now considered impossible until they step into the plate and get it done.
Oh, I love it. I also love, people saying, oh, it's not possible, or you're not the right one, or you can't do it. And I'm like, well, how do you know? You've never done it.
Yeah, I feel
so
like
anything is
dare.
possible if you want it, period. And role model.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gabby Reece, and I am a retired, thank you. I am a retired athlete, a long time ago, actually. And I have been a television host. I've written a few books. I have co-founded, maybe you had a coffee from Laird's Superfood. I co-founded a fitness business, XPT. I have a podcast, Gabby Reece Show. I have 3 daughters. I have been
busy.
Yeah, I have.
How do you do it all?
It's called years, that's all. And I've been in the same relationship for almost 30 years, shockingly. So. I've lived a few 30 years longer or so than you have, so you can get it. You can squeeze it all.
I've lived 30 years longer than you.
Immaculate.
I don't think so.
Skincare looks great for both of y'all, if that's the case.
Thank you. Says you.
Up close.
Yeah. Well, let's get off this and let's get into the questions.
So but tell us something we wouldn't know about you.
Oh. I think, I had an interesting epiphany about myself that was brought up by someone else. I thought for a really long time that I was I am a very goal-oriented, striving, disciplined, grinding person. When I was a lot younger, though, everyone I met that was highly successful, either really wealthy, well-known, whatever it was, their personal life was like the collateral damage was brutal, even male or female. It wasn't, one or the other. And so what I actually realized about myself is that the thing I was actually trying to create was a family. And then the things I was going to do kind of on the side, even though I've done them pretty well, was build these other things around my life. And that was just me personally. I didn't realize that about myself, that felt like something really important. So to see me, you'd think, oh, I just want to go out there and win and do all these things, which is true. But actually this idea of having, relationships and close friendships and thing, really, I didn't realize until my 50s that was the most important thing to me. And I built everything else around that.
I love that. And, when I first saw you, which I was so excited to see both of you and to be lucky enough to be able to have this conversation, I asked you how you are. And what was your answer?
I'm great.
I said, I love that. Like, when you don't hear that often, where you say, I'm great. And then you told me a story about a guy in a coffee shop. What'd you tell me?
I have a guy friend who went to a coffee shop, and he said he ran into somebody, and he asked the other gentleman, how are you doing today? And the guy said, I'm perfect, and so are you. And I'm always reminded that if we can touch each other and leave every situation, long or short, just better than when we entered, these are all things that stack onto themselves that are so valuable.
I love that. I just love that because here we are in a health, space, all talking about that. And if you say you're great, it internalizes the great. And I think that is amazing. And perfection doesn't exist, but you're perfect in your own way, right? Perfect people aren't real people aren't perfect. So anyone that tells you they're perfect consistently is full of shit.
I think it's really cool. Just to add on to that, something that has been really helpful for me is on the days where you can only give 40%, but you gave that 40%, you gave 100% that day. And so then you stepping up every single day to where it's like, I gave 40, but I'm good. I did the 40 that I had, I gave my 100, and I'm good. And I think leading into, as an athlete, taking that, because some days we definitely don't have it all to give 100%, but being able to show up is half the battle, and I can show up, do 50, then I know I'm doing what I need to do.
Did you ever, in your career, and especially as an athlete, which is all-consuming, you give it all, have those moments that you had a breakdown, or you just felt burnt out, exhausted, but you had to keep going? And what was that moment, and how did you push through it, and how does that affect you today?
I would say probably the biggest moment stands out to me was when I broke my hand playing. And the season for professional softball is so short. So if I were to say I'm going to wait till it heals, the season would be gone by the time I was able to play. So I played with a broken hand that entire season. And it was excruciating. I was hitting, so you imagine the ricket of the bat, and then catching was my catching hand. And so, but playing through that, I had such low confidence. I was so nervous. I'm known for making these diving catches, and I was nervous to catch the ball, like a ball just in the air. And so I just wasn't feeling like myself. And I really realized that my mentality kind of shifted that day of, I don't have to do this, I get to do this. And so stepping up every single day of the mentality of I get to do this, and instead of letting it drain, because we have that voice inside of our heads that it can tell you it's not always the nicest, and trying to discern between whether it's my anxiety or whether it is discernment, and really realizing that it is the voice that's speaking nicely to me. That's my discernment, and I always went with the voice that was speaking nice. And that year, I actually made this catch without thinking about it, and it ultimately ended up being the catch that went viral, that led to me winning the Gold Glove. So the year that was my hardest year, showing up because I got to instead of I had to, shifting that mindset, changed the trajectory of my life. So that was, I definitely say, feeling down, but trying to tell myself I get to do this every day, and it changed.
Cheers.
Oh, thanks.
We also, when you have that voice in your head, we just say, shut that bitch up, and own it, because that is just the truth. Men also have imposter syndrome, by the way. They just ignore the voice. We let the voice get louder, so we know what to do with that. What about you, Gabby?
I think injury, I think playing in a body that you feel unsure is never easy, but then you translate that to everyday life, and maybe you go into a meeting, or you have a new idea, or you're starting a new business, or they hand you a baby. It's like all these times. Remember when you go to the hospital and you go, I'm going home with them for the first time? I think that what you realize in athletics is an extreme or exaggerated environment that really accelerates your relationship with, I'm uncomfortable, I'm unsure, and here we go. And I think that is true, that we can bring that into whatever it is that we're doing. Even in a relationship, you can sort of say, I'm having all these feelings, I'm willing to address them and also continue to move forward. Not now we're going to sit in a circle and be upset about it. So I think injury for sure as an athlete is the thing that you really feel vulnerable, and you find, it's a workaround. We all are doing our workaround.
Did you, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a flight attendant. That was my goal. Now I'm a 3 million miler on pretty much every airline, so I think I can check that box. Did you always want to be an athlete, like either of you? Like when you thought about what you want to be when you grow up, what did you want to be?
Yeah, I always wanted to be an athlete. That was always the goal ever since I've tried every single sport, and softball stuck, and it was only because I'm from Florida, so the grass is really dewy in the morning, and I made a diving catch, and I thought it was like a slip and slide. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. So, but softball or sports has always been something that I've wanted to do and achieve, and thankfully I did.
I actually fell into athletics. I'm pretty tall, and I moved.
6 foot.
Had no choice.
I'm really tall too. I'm 5'3".
In my sport, this is nothing. I'm almost not tall enough now. But I lived in the Caribbean, moved to Florida. They sort of went, you're very tall. And I fell into playing, good coaches, ended up going to school on a scholarship, sort of fell in love with the game and continued from there. So mine was a different entry, for sure.
Fell in love in college?
I mean, I really understood the sport. I really started my junior year. So I had an incredible coach who's still a very close friend of mine. And if we're talking about leadership, I think that she's a great example of somebody who made me, that's why I went professional. And she taught me a lot of values about personal accountability and taking responsibility for yourself. And I'll tell you a quick story that she told me, because I think it's really true to leadership. She called me into her office. At that time, I was on my own. I was on a scholarship, then I started modeling. I was paying my bills. I actually gave up my scholarship and paid to play my last 2 years. And she called me in and she goes, listen, I have to make decisions for the whole team. So at work, you have to make decisions for the whole team. And she goes, half the team is not going to be happy because they're not playing. Half is. And she goes, in the end, I have to do what's best for the situation and what's right for the end goal. And she goes, and she looked at me, and I was 19, and she goes, and in the end, I know one person will be happy. And she goes, me. And I didn't understand it then, but I think as a leader sometimes, especially female leaders, is that okay? Is this okay? It's never going to be all okay. You got to put together the best plan for the end goal strategy, and everybody just will have to trust that you're there for a reason. You're the leader for a reason.
Love that. That's a great lesson. Yeah. And it's translatable from sport.
Yeah.
From the field to the boardroom.
Yeah, I mean, I understood it 20 years later, but it landed.
Isn't that when you get that epiphany, like, shit, I get it now, 20 years later.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
But you can still use it. Do you have one of those, like, leadership lessons that a coach or a teammate or anyone in your rise forward gave you?
Yeah, I would definitely say it was probably primarily my dad. I remember telling him I love fashion, so one of the years he used to
give
me.
Look at you.
Thanks. But growing up, he would give a budget for our back-to-school shopping, and then I remember one year he really cut back on the budget, and I was so upset about it. And I said, whatever it is you're saving for college, can you just add that to my budget this year, and I'll get a scholarship. And so then he was very serious and told me there's always going to be someone better than you. So if you really want to get a scholarship, there better be no one that works harder. I can tell you those words stuck to me like glue. Like when I got to LSU's where I played collegiately, there were moments when I would go to bed after practice and think to myself, somebody in California is 2 more hours than me. And I would get back up and get back on the road and get to working. And so when I think about leadership, he's the person that's really, I feel like, molded who I am as a leader, as a person, and then also outside of the field of I'm just not gonna ever allow anybody to outwork me. And when it comes to that mentality, but it's more so also myself. I would never want to leave a moment feeling like I could have done more. And in those positions, I've really developed the thought process of being too determined to be defeated and too focused to be doubtful. And so never allowing doubt and never allowing any moment to defeat me because I am too focused and too determined towards my goals to never let anybody be better, to work harder than me ultimately and then be better. Yeah. So thanks, Dad, for not giving me that extra money.
Okay, so now let's go. I think I'm going to play the generation game for a minute because I know I got to go there because like women in sports, like athletes are athletes, but the game is changing, and I actually think we're redefining and creating the next new for sports, and I think women are going to lead that. And, you know, in the olden days, it was the eyeball game, and today with storytelling and fan engagement and all these things that women are leading the way in is going to transform the game. So then, what was, and now looking at now and tomorrow, okay, I'm the oldest, so I could go first. I wasn't an athlete like you. I did play tennis, and I wanted to be Chrissy Everett, and I did wear ruffle panties like she did. I looked really cute. That was a really long time ago. But you know, how do you feel the game is changing, should change, can change? Like, what's the forward? So going back to looking forward.
Well, you know, as you've so clearly pointed out,
I love you. You know that.
I've checked out women's sports for a very long time. What I will say from my vantage point that I think is so important for women's sports, period, work hard, be talented, be good, have a plan, have a strategy, all these things. That's never going to change. That's the same in your work life. That's just life, right? And the thing is, we can know everything, but we have to have a practice and we have to have a plan. Okay. But the other thing is that we have to understand, what are we selling? The mistake is that we compare to what men are selling and say we should, which I've understood if we use the word should, we've left reality. We should get what they get. Well, no, let's understand who we are, what we're selling, what's exciting, and how we can monetize what we're selling so our athletes can get paid more versus, oh, we should. So I think going forward, if you're really serious, it's about these young, powerful, beautiful, talented, intelligent athletes going, who are we, what do we sell, how do we get our audience, and then elevate the whole situation.
Not should. I am.
Well, and
what is my value, my ad?
And the WNBA is not the NBA, but it's great and different on its own. And so how can they maximize that opportunity instead of being frustrated that guys who had a league 40 years before them, you know, whatever, because that doesn't have anything to do with you.
That's very powerful. And that translates into everything that we do.
Well, if you're going to be a leader, right? You can trust yourself to lead in the way that you're going to lead as in this case, female leader. But some of those things, and you know this from being in sports, it's also male and female energy. When she's competing, she's not necessarily in her female energy, she's in her male. And if you're a CEO, you might be borrowing your male energy. And so I don't think we have to worry about leaning back and forth into those two places.
Well, I also think, like, if we put the gender on it, then, like, when we say, oh, we want male allies. No, we want leadership allies. We want power allies. If you're in a position of power, use that power and pull somebody up.
Yeah, and be qualified. And by the way, most men at your workplace have daughters, wives, sisters, and mothers. They usually are advocate. And so if we show up and we're capable and we can do the job, I do think we'll navigate, yes, some of the strange hurdles that are there.
Strange is an interesting word for it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to shift it.
I love the shift because I'm going to end on the shift because we did have a shift conversation too. So I want to end on that. What do you think?
I just think
How old are you?
wait, guess.
Oh, I mean, well, your wisdom is 65. Your age is
I'm 31.
30. Yeah, I was gonna say
Your
27
skin
to
is
30.
12.
Yeah, bitch.
But she'll look like that in 20 years, so it's okay.
Thanks, y'all. Well, I think that when it comes to women in sports, especially presently, something that I hope so many women, especially that are working to excel and working to step at the plate and realize that they deserve the same respect, attention, and excitement that the male sports get, which I feel like we're starting to see that push, right? It's trending to be a fan of women's sports right now, but it needs to be something that is just innate. The respect and the love that you have for the male sports needs to be the same thing you have for women. And for those that are playing the sport, my message would definitely just be continue to make whoever it is that you look up to a guide rather than a goal, because I feel as if once we make people our goals, we put a cap on our own success, and we could excel, the things that we could do, the things that we could achieve, we only put a cap on exactly what we could do. And I think that there's so many women in sports that had their own vision and utilize these guys, but set their own goals, and now we're seeing so much success all around multiple different leagues. And so if we can continue to do that, but then also have brands and partnerships that see that goal, see that vision, and help to uplift it, then we'll really have a space for women in sports that is unlike any other. And it won't just be a trend to support women's sports, it will be the standard.
Okay, I'm over time, but let's leave with one closing thought. And since we are in a health and wellness space, like, do you have a guilty pleasure that, and let's keep it G, R, we go R. Oh, fine, okay, fine. We have permission to do that. I like that. Sorry, not sorry. That powers your joy.
Go, young lady, go.
Go.
Okay, I'll go. As somebody who is doing all the time, like all of you, you're doing, and then sometimes we sit for a moment and we think, I should be doing. One thing I've learned, there's a Chinese saying of like to do nothing. And I think sometimes I give myself, certainly as time goes on, the permission to do nothing, because that is also when you get to hear your voice, where you think you want to go next, what conversations you need to be having, and I don't have to be productive every second of the day, even though that is my tendency. So sometimes just giving myself that permission to be has, I guess, become a guilty pleasure.
And by the way, you used language that is so genius. It's not to do, it's to be.
To be.
To be.
To be, and ultimately to be you.
Love that. Bring us home.
Okay, well, one I was going to say is Love Island.
Home run.
Say Love Island?
Yeah, Love Island is definitely one.
That is definitely a guilty pleasure.
But then another one would definitely be taking my space, I think, in regards to what you were saying, but not moving when people want me to move. And so whether it's like, I need you to get this done now, it's like, I'll get it done, in my process, in my time. And I guess I would call it a guilty pleasure, because sometimes I feel obligated to do certain things. And I've really been able to take the moment of forcing myself to not feel guilty and not feel obligated, and to move within a space that is valuable to myself and allows me to get to things when they align with me rather than when I feel like I have to.
Amen. All right, well, here's to getting rid of status quo, creating solutions for change. We talked about solutions. And when purpose meets passion, you are unstoppable. And both of you are fearless and unstoppable. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so much for questions.
Oh, wait, I know. Are you going to get in trouble?
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure you're
Used
worried
to that.
about it.